Welcome to another episode of Let's Parley, where we are here to encourage you to bet on yourself and pursue all that life has in store for you. For this episode, I'll be sharing some life updates, talking about some recent events that have happened in our country and just around the world, and some reflections that I've had for myself, and all in hopes to help you kind of understand a little bit more about yourself and your situation and maybe just establish some common ground. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So without further ado, let's parlay. What's going on, family? Great to see you. Well, I can't see you, but I hope it's great for you to see me again. It's great to check back in with you again, I should say. Yeah, it's been, I think, a few weeks since I dropped my last episode. I took a little bit of a break. Went back to the East Coast to see some family and friends. And for those who I didn't reach out to and I didn't really make it public to, I'm sorry. It's just I like to make sure that I can not feel overwhelmed when I'm going to see people on the East Coast, and was able to just see some of my fraternity brothers I hadn't seen in years. Was able to attend a wedding and see a lot of friends that I hadn't seen in a while. Was able to just spend time with my parents in person, which is great, especially with them being in Delaware, me being in Texas. It's just something that I really like to cherish. And I got to see some extended family too, some cousins, aunts and uncles, my goddaughter. It was just a really, really good time. And yeah, it was something where I felt like it kind of recharged me a bit, helped me understand what I'm doing a lot of these things for, like when it comes to my business, when it comes to my day-to-day work, the folks that I may be inspiring and who I already may have inspired, which is great, especially on the fitness front. I just want to shout out my family. They are just crushing it in all different areas of their health. And some of that has been just because of, health issues and things that may have come up. But regardless, I'm just so happy to see so many of my family taking care of themselves and just making the most out of their lives so that we can live not only as long as we can, but just the most functional that we possibly can as well too. So and that was one of my biggest things with starting Tailored Fit, and my fitness coaching platform was, I just saw what was happening in the world during the pandemic, and I wanted to help inspire my family to start making some healthier choices, but also to help others outside of my family and friends to do the same thing and get some guidance on that front. So yeah, it was just a great trip. It was about a week and some change. Just really, really thankful for that time. And yeah, I've had a lot of since that period as well too. And if you haven't done this already, I just want to encourage you to maybe think about taking some time to do this. For people who are living where you grew up and it's not that far from you, it may not hit the same way, but for someone like myself I lived in Delaware for the majority of my life, and then I lived in Philly for 3 years, lived in LA for 2 years, and coming up on a year in Austin already. There's just so much time that feels like it's passed since I've gone back to the neighborhoods that I grew up in Delaware. Even just driving past the schools that I went to and seeing where things happened in my life, and just remembering that. I took some time to just drive around and kind of reminisce. And yeah, it made me realize Monty, you've come so far. Everything that you're stressed about today, everything that consumes you, bro, just look at what's happened in your life. And I just kind of went back into where I was in those moments, and I tried to personify, what would that version of Monty be thinking about this version, the current day version of Monty, and what I'm currently doing in life and what I've accomplished thus far. I think that version of Monty would think this version of Monty is pretty cool, and pretty impressive and maybe even proud. But anyway, it's just crazy to kind of reflect on all of that. And it was a really great time. And I just want to encourage you, if you haven't had the time to go back and see family or even just reminisce on some of those things that you've gone through in your life, especially physically being in those places. It just did a lot for me. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you all because I thought that that was something that I got the most out of from the trip as well too. And the other thing that I'll mention is that throughout that time, I was able to really, chat with like old friends, brothers of mine, family, and and this isn't, I hope this doesn't come off as like me bragging or anything, but sometimes in my own world, and I'm sure that you can resonate with this, you don't feel like you've done enough, or you don't feel like you've accomplished what you've wanted to accomplish by a certain time. Especially when you're a dreamer like myself, I've set really big goals, and there's a lot that I've wanted to get done. And yeah, full transparency, I haven't gotten to all of those things yet, and it hasn't happened on my timing, And I think when I was, talking to a lot of friends and family and hearing them say like, Monty, we see what you're doing, we're proud of you, keep doing what you're doing, and hearing them just, really lift me up and lift my spirits up just in general. I don't even think any of them knew like what I've been thinking about and what's been on my mind, but they just, came with that, and came with that energy and that support. And it just made me realize like, yeah, like it just kind of compounded on the experience that I had with reminiscing, and then having people say like, yo, like we talk about you, this, that, and the third. You're just not conscious of it. And I think everybody has that version of, people who support them. And I really hope that everybody does, but it made me very thankful that I do have that I do have, the cheerleaders and the family and friends who do support me. And yeah, it kind of circles back to my other reflection as well too from the trip, and just recently is that being in community with people and connecting with people is something that's so important. And I talked about this the last episode, but it's so interesting how you can say something in one moment and then struggle with that very thing the next moment, when it comes to isolation and when it comes to just being in community and connecting and speaking to folks. And I was feeling as if, I just didn't want to burden people with whatever it was that was on my mind, or what I was going through with my personal situation. And I think this is something that I've often realized and observed that men deal with a lot more than women. I think women have a lot more of a community and a lot more of an openness towards like reaching out and, knowing that, hey, the other person on the other end, they want to hear. And even if they don't, I'm going to tell them because I need to talk to somebody, right? Whereas men, I think we often struggle with that, and we keep a lot to ourselves and don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing much of anything with anyone else. A lot of that, I know for myself, I should say, is kind of rooted in maybe a bit of like shame, like not wanting to expose yourself, not wanting to, be vulnerable, because that's a very cherished thing. Like I think as men, we just don't do that very often. So it feels very rare. And then on top of that, I'll say that I don't think a lot of guys want to feel pity. And yeah, that's something that we very much like run away from. We don't want people to feel sorry for us or whatever have you. We'd rather just feel sorry for ourselves and deal with it on our own time. And yeah, that's just something that I've realized I can kind of slip into, especially when I'm stressed, even when I'm not like consciously stressed, but things are starting to pile up, and it creates like a subconscious stress where you realize you start doing things and start going to certain vices, and you're not sure why you're doing it, but there's like a programming that's happening because that's your comfort. That's like the easiest way to escape whatever it is that's on your mind. And I felt myself kind of slipping into those habits over the past month, just in general. If I'm going to be completely honest with you all, I think, just to share, I had taken on a lot more than maybe I could chew with my business in the month of August, primarily August, but I'd really say like late July to August. And I mean, I had hired so many, different contractors and was working on so many different aspects of my business all at once. And it was the first time that I had ever done this. And it was also because there was just a huge demand that I had saw for my Fit and Faith program that I had launched. And what I essentially did was I said, okay, I am going to go all in with everything all at once. And I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, but I'm going to get help in order to do it. But when you're hiring people and you need to onboard, there's a lot more work that goes into that than I had realized at the time. And doing that with so many people at the same time, I think it just started to pile up. And I also was dealing with challenges within the market and trying to understand, like, okay, I'm seeing that I'm getting certain types of people who are interested in the program. Those people may not necessarily be aligned with the program. Why is that? It was just so much happening all at once. And I share this to say that it took me some time to reflect on it, because in the moment I had no idea that I was, stressed and like trying to figure out too much at the same time. But in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, wow, yeah, that was kind of a lot. And it's okay, right? Like, the reality is that I think for anyone who is trying to do something that no one in their close circle has ever done before, like, this is the process of learning, trial and error, and going through the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. And this is what I signed up for. This is what I knew would ultimately happen, especially when I would attempt to figure things out on my own. Like, I've had business coaches and mentors in the past, and this year I've really been just taking things on for myself for the most part, with no sort of official help, I should say. And yeah, that comes with its own challenges and its own headaches, and that's just something that I had to realize this past month was like, okay, I think I learned my lesson from that. Take it one step at a time. There's no rush. There's like this itch for me to, become super successful. And I think also turning 30 this year makes me feel like a greater sense of urgency with that as well too. So there's just so much that, is fueling that desire to want to like succeed and crush it and make it. And then also just my own competitive nature. So yeah, just wanted to share what's been going on. I think on social media, I probably haven't posted in a while, and nothing on my story and all that sort of stuff. I've really been low key, and I go through these periods where that's my best way of dealing with it, is just to try to, I don't want to feel like I'm inauthentic by posting things and doing them for the wrong reasons, right? So I've been a little bit incognito, if you haven't noticed, but yeah, I'm coming back stronger than ever with this episode, and just want to get the ball rolling on, chipping off one thing at a time, and just being comfortable with that pace, and not trying to supersede God's timing and allow it to just happen naturally. So anyway, those are some of my reflections. I will also add that, for those folks who are of faith and who know about the story of Job, that's what I felt like over the past month and a half, was like, I don't know if anybody has these sort of conversations with God, but I do. And I hope y'all don't judge. For me, I was very blunt with God. I was like, I haven't been this diligent with my relationship with Christ and my faith walk ever in my life. This is the first time that I've ever done this, and especially so consistently. And I'm trying my best, and I'm making progress in so many different areas. I'm hanging around more, like-minded people, more Christ-like people, consuming more of the word, and just knowing that I'm at a place where I've never been before, and me personally feeling like, oh, I've been so faithful and all that sort of stuff. And then for all of this to happen, you kind of get into this like self-pity mode where you're like, why me? And I felt like I really resonated with Job on sort of the test that he had to go through. And a lot of people talk about that story, but I think a lot of people fail to mention how stressed Job was. Like if you hear his words and his conversations with God and his conversations with his friends who were trying to console him and like trying to make sense of things, he was struggling. And I've been struggling too, and that's completely fine. But it's just so funny how there's so many different examples in the Word of God that resonate with our life and that can draw a lot of parallels. So to me, I just felt like, man, I got it, bro. Like I can completely get why, you were feeling the way that you felt, because I felt like I've been such a loyal servant and such a dedicated servant, and improving on all of those fronts as well too. So yeah, just a lot of that has been going on for me personally, and yeah, and I just wanted to share that with you all because I'm not coming here to try to come off as like a expert on anything. Like I'm figuring this stuff out with you all as you are. So, but I will say that I do enjoy helping people also figure out whatever they have going on in their lives, and especially with things that I've overcome. So yeah, just figured I'd share that as well too. Outside of my own personal reflection, well, maybe I shouldn't say outside of my own personal reflection. I would say a part of that reflection has been just kind of analyzing and making sense of a lot of what's been happening in the world recently. I know I've really never talked about any like current news or anything that's political or whatever, just because I don't really have an interest in making this about that. I don't think that that's going to be that helpful. But it just this week and just over the past couple of months, I think I've just been noticing certain things that I feel like, especially folks who are believers, I've realized things that I hope will help you in analyzing what's been happening and what you take away from recent events. The most recent event was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That was something that, was talked about a lot on social media and just in the news in general. The many different mass shootings that have happened over the year. Even a congresswoman, I think she was killed. Her and her husband were killed in Minnesota, I believe. And there's just so many different examples of, just people being killed and yeah, innocent people being killed as well too. So yeah, it was something that I really, really had to pause and reflect on. And a lot of it actually helped me kind of get out of my funk, because I realized like, life is short. You really don't know what can take you out or who can take you out at any given moment. And it's not to create like any sort of fear or any sort of, paranoia about like, when are you going to die or whatever, but it's just more of like being honest and transparent about the world that we live in currently, where not every day is promised. So for me, it just helped me kind of reflect a lot more personally. And then also, with 9/11 passing and reflecting on that, I want to share a quick story, because to me, I think it kind of helped me understand like where God has been placed in my life. And yeah, I don't know if I've shared this already. So if I have, then, you can just skip past this. But yeah, I was born in New York, and I left New York when I was 5 years old with my mother. And before all of that, that I think it was a year before I was born. My grandmother had passed away, my mom's mom. And one of the things that she had always emphasized to my mother was like, get out of New York, you know, you don't need to be here, right? And that was something that my mother had always contemplated, was leaving New York and trying to figure out the timing of that. And the crazy thing about all of this was that my mom worked in banking, and she worked for a bank that was located in the World Trade Center, like on the 80th floor. And, you know, so when she was thinking about moving and when she finally decided to move, it was 8 months before 9/11 had actually happened. So, yeah, just thinking about like, you know, all the sort of things that you can piece together on why things happened, why my grandmother said that to my mother, and why it happened at such a time where it happened before, you know, 9/11, and as opposed to afterwards, and just how different my life would have been if my mom would have been involved in all that. So anytime, you know, 9/11 comes around, I just reflect on like God's grace on my life personally, and I just, you know, get into gratitude. But that event where so many innocent people died, and just thinking about all that has kind of been happening with a lot of innocent folks dying at the hands of others. Yeah, it just made me realize that I really think that there are evil forces that are trying to create division amongst us, especially within our country, but even just in the world in general. I don't, you know, I'm not going to sit here and try to come up with some sort of theory and share it with you to try to make you believe in it. But what I've noticed is that whether it's, no matter what you believe in, we all have a natural tendency to want to blame somebody when something terrible happens. You know, we always want to point the finger. We always want to point towards something that could have prevented it, but it happened anyway. And I've noticed that happens politically on both sides of the aisle, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. And I've noticed that it's like our comfort zone. It's our comfort place to, when something bad happens, immediately try to find somebody to blame, right? Oh, these people are inciting violence. That's the reason why people are now, or, you know, it's the other way around where it's like, oh, well, that person incited violence, so now and it's just like, the more that mindset creeps into our psyche and the more that's said, the more that you will begin to manifest more examples of that, right? And I just want to encourage everybody as much as you possibly can to just read in between the lines as much as you're able to when it comes to the recent events and the deaths, and just understand that, like, if there were an evil force in this world, if there was something that was trying to create as much chaos as possible, whether it be a group of people or whether it be just something spiritually, like, this is exactly how they're like exposing their playbook right now. And having so many of these egregious murders happen, they're exposing, you know, what the plan necessarily is, which is, you know, we are at a very tense spot in society right now, where there is a lot of just extreme tension in, you know, beliefs and politics and whatever, religion, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of tension, and it seems like to me that people are noticing this and they're trying to provoke as much as possible something beyond, you know, what we've currently experienced up to this point, where it's just verbal, and now it's actually getting into, you know, and affecting people's lives. So yeah, I just wanted to share that and let you know that I don't think that there's really any one person or any one thing to blame. Terrible things do happen, and I do believe that the list of the things that have happened recently are a part of something that's trying to divide us. And I'll just put it at that, right? So whatever you decide to believe or whatever you decide to take action on, I encourage you to do it in an act of like love and bringing people together and empathy. But I know that there's also harsh realities of ways that things could have been prevented, et cetera, et cetera. But we're at a point where those things have passed, right? Like we can't sit here and start to blame or continue to blame people for things that happened in the past that we can't change. So my hope is that, just with me sharing this, you're just more encouraged to be curious about people who have different opinions, to be curious about why someone may feel more impacted by something happening that doesn't really impact you, and to step into a place where we never, ever celebrate death or celebrate anyone being harmed physically, especially if they've never harmed anyone else. Having different opinions and all that sort of stuff. I know people, especially nowadays, are, very much leaning into, well, those words are harmful, but, what does it go? Like sticks and stones may break my bones, but, words will never hurt me. Like, I just really think that we got to get back on the same page around that stuff and just realize that we're much better together than we are apart. So anyway, I'm not going to lead any sort of marches anytime soon. All right. I'm just sharing this because I feel like I even started to slip into like a blame game in my head too. And I just don't think that that's healthy. And I don't think it's going to move the needle forward in any positive direction to do that. So those are some of my thoughts. I hope I made sense. And I never want to come off as trying to tell you what to do with yourself. I just decided to share what I am believing and what I'd like to do moving forward and why I believe that makes the most sense. So, yeah, I just hope that everybody's been blessed. And I've been praying over this world, praying over this country, and praying over the families that have been impacted from the recent murders and deaths, and it's just really tough to digest and move on from, because it creates a little bit of a fear in your own life when you feel like now anything could possibly happen when you walk outside. But anyway, we are very much exposed to a lot of information, so we're at a time where we probably wouldn't have even known about these things so quickly, and having them in video as well too. So that's all I got for today. I just wanted to get this series kick-started up again. This is episode 16. Looking to get 30 in before the end of the year. I might have to double up on episodes each week, depending on just the pace of things and holidays and etc. But yeah, I'm excited to be chatting with y'all. Hope that this episode was helpful and that it was something that gave you a different perspective that may help you in your own personal life. But if you haven't already, subscribe to the show, subscribe to the channel, I should say, and comment, please. Let me know if there's any thoughts that you have that you wanted to share. Of course, I want to encourage you to share any comments and thoughts that are positive, that you feel like may be helpful, and just excited to continue to talk with you all and check in. And I hope that you appreciate this format that I'm going with now, like where I'm just sharing a little bit more about what's happening in my mind recently and maybe some ways that it could help you. So anyway, that's all I got. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, hope you've been encouraged to bet on yourself and pursue all that life has in store for you. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. I'm out.